The roster cuts keep on coming for WWE. This time it is happening in NXT. I would like to give a shout out to Sean Ross Sapp from Fightful.com, who pretty much... he's been giving us a lot of updates today. As you guys know, if you missed the video on AEW announcing their new time slots, new television network, and of course their new show, AEW Rampage, you guys could check out that link. I'll put that link in the description if you guys missed that video. But Sean Ross Sapp of Fightful.com hit us with some very interesting news today, and that is that WWE has released several NXT talent from their contract. Now, this shouldn't be entirely surprising because a lot of these names haven't been used. But of course, there is a controversial name on this list, so we're going to talk about it. My name is Ango. This is Destination Pro Wrestling. We're going to try doing some audio-only content. We're going to see how this goes. So if you guys are watching on YouTube, just go ahead and put your device away, put your headphones in, whatever it may be. And if you guys are now listening to this on Spotify, that is completely great as well. As always, all of the latest podcasts and videos are uploaded on our website, destinationpw.com. And we're going to try changing it up a little bit. I think going away from video might be the new play. We're going to see how that goes. Of course, all feedback is appreciated. But I think what's most important is the content we talk about and not necessarily, me being on camera and things of that nature. So with that being said, who did WWE release from NXT? Well, some of these names are surprising. If you guys didn't know, Imperium was a very, very big group in NXT UK and, of course, in WWE. But we now know that Alexander Wolf has been released. He is gone from WWE, and, of course, he's not the only one. WWE has also announced a few more releases. Referee Jake Clemens, if you guys didn't know Jake Clemens, he was pretty big on the independent scene as a referee. He made his way into WWE. I believe he even refereed for WWE Raw at one point. Very good referee. I'm not sure why he was released out of the group. I feel like he was a really good ref, but nonetheless, they did decide to cut ties with him, unfortunately. We also know that the controversial Drake Wuertz has been released by WWE as well. A lot of people have been going online waiting for the release of Drake, formerly known as Drake Younger on the independent scene. I don't know too much about his situation, but I do know throughout the last few months, or I should say throughout the COVID pandemic, there has been a lot of controversy with Drake Wuertz. And, I think a lot of this stems from like COVID conspiracy theories and stuff like that. And, I'm not really too focused on the controversy itself. I from what I've read, it sounds like this definitely impacted him while his time in WWE, while he was backstage. There's been people saying that he's taken upon, local municipality, he participated in these like different meetings and stuff to speak up about human trafficking and a whole bunch of other things. But he was doing this while backstage with WWE, even possibly wearing his NXT referee shirt. I mean, there's a lot of talks about this situation. It's obviously been controversial. It's really interesting. I know some people even mention this on Twitter. He was somebody that was, a lot of people want to see him in WWE. And then once this whole thing kind of came out with his controversies, a lot of people have been waiting for him to be fired. There was even talks recently that he was suspended. There was just a lot of things going on in that nature. So we now know that WWE has also released him. But also what's really surprising is the fact that there are more releases that WWE has had today. So we're going to continue throughout this list. 3 more names. Kavita Devi. If you guys don't remember her, she was a pickup for WWE, especially with their expansion in the NXT India type of thing that they were doing. Obviously, WWE has been trying to expand their global reach, especially within India. Kavita Devi was part of the Evolution pay-per-view. We've seen her a couple times, but we didn't see her too much in WWE. We also saw that Jessamyn Duke has been released by WWE. If you guys don't know who Jessamyn Duke is, she was part of Ronda Rousey's 4 Horsewomen. The one interesting thing out of this list, though, is Jessamyn Duke was released, but Marina Shafir was not. So we know that so far, Marina Shafir, who is the real world wife of Roderick Strong, we know that she is still with WWE. However, Jessamyn Duke has been released. And the last name, honestly, I feel is very surprising because there had been main roster plans for this individual. Vanessa Bourne. If you guys didn't know, Vanessa Bourne has been released in the last several months. It's actually been rumored that she was called up to the WWE main roster. She was backstage several times, apparently, but she was never used. And I don't know how this situation kind of came up with WWE, but I'll kind of get to my opinion in a moment. But with Vanessa Bourne, she was slated to have a pretty big main roster run, and then we saw Chelsea Green was called up roughly around the same time. Chelsea Green got injured in her debut match on SmackDown, and then we never really saw Vanessa Bourne. We never saw her make her main roster appearance, but of course it definitely caused a lot of people to be curious on what was going on because she's been in NXT for a long time. And then, of course, when it was said that she was going to be on the main roster, a lot of people were shocked because we barely seen much of her in WWE. But then WWE all of a sudden has released Vanessa Bourne. You know, one of the things I want to talk about this on this video specifically, and if I run a little bit longer than normal, I apologize. But one of the biggest things I wanted to talk about was the amount of roster members WWE has that they don't use. I feel like, especially on this channel, we've talked a lot greatly about WWE signing new wrestlers, right? And then every so often there is a video that gets uploaded on my YouTube channel, Destination PW, in which somebody from the WWE roster gets released. And a lot of these names are shocking. Sometimes these names aren't shocking, and sometimes these are people we don't see. But it's very interesting that WWE continues to sign people, yet still not use them. And, you know, I feel like every single time there's a video that gets announced where people have been released by WWE, you know, the first comment that I typically see on my comment section is that, you know, people are clamoring for these people to sign with AEW. And look, I am all about AEW being an alternative option for some of these people in WWE, especially the ones that haven't been used, because of course it's another area where they can be used, grow their talent, and then possibly make a name for themselves. We've seen this firsthand with AEW and Tay Conti. You know, that is just something incredibly important to see because she was obviously given a championship match against Hikaru Shida, and that program was pretty damn good. So, you know, I'm not the one to say here and say that everybody needs to go to AEW. I think Vanessa Bourne, from what I've seen, could be someone in a pro wrestling show. Like, I don't think she's that green where she is not talented enough to be on TV. From a presentation standpoint, too, I think she would be quite good. So, like, you know, if AEW is looking at beefing up their women's roster, I'm not saying you have to sign Vanessa Bourne. I'm not saying you have to sign Jessamyn Duke. I'm not even saying you have to sign Kavita Devi. But these are 3 names that I think are very, very interesting because we don't know a lot about them, but they deserve an opportunity to show us what they're worth. And I think AEW has a platform to do that. They've done a really good job of utilizing AEW Dark for that purpose. So if AEW wants to experiment here, you know, before you even sign anybody to a contract, I think this would be a very good scenario for AEW. But most importantly, there's one thing I want to mention because I didn't talk about Alexander Wolf. And I've kind of been saving this a little bit towards the end. Alexander Wolf was a great talent for WWE, and there's a lot of places I would love to see Alexander Wolf. More specifically, Alexander Wolf would be a very great pickup for Impact Wrestling. Just based on their product, the way that they work, their presentation, I can definitely see Alexander Wolf doing amazing things on Impact Wrestling. But this is the one scenario where if I'm AEW, this is a great opportunity for you to sign somebody from WWE that has a very little exposure. very little exposure. And if I'm AEW, I say to take the ball and run with it. This is a ball that I think WWE is fumbling on. I loved Imperium the way it was. I don't think Imperium needed any changes, and I understand that COVID has definitely played a significant role, obviously with the transportation of NXT UK wrestlers. But with that being said, Imperium was still doing some stuff on Wednesday nights, or excuse me, now Tuesday nights with NXT. And most importantly, if I'm WWE, I just don't know how you drop Alexander Wolf unless there's something that hasn't been disclosed. He is somebody that can do very well in pro wrestling. And I know some of you guys might think he's just mid-card material, and that's very well possible. But I see Alexander Wolf being a great asset to Impact Wrestling. And if I'm AEW, I would try to make that not happen. You know, AEW's roster is growing. It's going to need to continue to grow now that we know that they have another show. But the AEW mid-card needs some work. That's always been my opinion. I always felt like the mid-card needs to, you know, just have some more big guys in its roster, and I think Alexander Wolf would be a great pickup. Now, I'm not advocating for AEW to sign anybody unless these people can go there and show their worth. So this is a situation where I think you do literally have to quote-unquote outwork everyone. But when I look at AEW's roster, it could use a little bit more of a bigger size. That's just always been my personal taste in wrestling. I think somebody who is a little bit bigger, a little bit meaner, a little bit more gritty, those are the type of people that I think, you know, AEW needs to sign. And I think Alexander Wolf is the perfect person for that. You know, it's very interesting, right? Like, Jessamyn Duke wasn't necessarily a pro wrestler before Ronda Rousey went to WWE. Where does she go from here? I don't know. Kavita Devi, where does she go from here? I don't know. Vanessa Bourne, does she still want to wrestle? I don't know. But from the outside looking in, I think Vanessa Bourne can have a lot of potential in AEW, and I think Alexander Wolf could have massive amount of potential in AEW or Impact. The beauty is things are starting to open up with COVID, and because of that, I'm very, very happy about that. Life is slowly going back to normal. Indie wrestling is coming back. If AEW or Impact don't sign any of these names, I would like to see somebody get picked up from this list. Also, I do want to mention, because it is important to mention, NXT talent do not follow a 90-day non-compete clause. So if you guys didn't know, Impact, AEW, ROH, all of these different companies have the opportunity to sign any one of these names after 30 days. So ultimately, we'll see what happens, but WWE continues to make cuts despite making tons of money. If you're not being used, hey, don't keep them. I get it. I understand it. I don't always agree with it, but WWE has cut several talent from their roster, and the real question is, who's next? All right, guys, this is Ango from Destination Pro Wrestling. Don't forget, you guys could join the channel. It's $4.99 a month. You guys can go check out destinationpw.com. This is where all of the latest podcasts and wrestling videos I upload. This website will have everything just in case Spotify or YouTube doesn't notify you. And then, of course, we have Discord. We're really growing the DPW family, and my goal is to be more consistent. So let's see what happens, guys. If you could support this channel, the best way to do that is by sharing this episode with your friends and family on social media. And otherwise, I will see you next time.